Hello, and welcome back. In this second chapter of our program, we're going to show you some of the techniques used to measure the performance of FR clothing. We're going to start with the most fundamental test in determining whether a garment is flame resistant. It is called the vertical flame test. The test method for vertical flame was developed by ASTM and is called ASTM D6413. Let's look at how this test is conducted. The strip of the fabric being tested is placed in the chamber here. Then it is exposed to a flame for 12 seconds. After 12 seconds, the flame is shut off. Two things are measured. The after flame, which is how long the fabric swatch continues to burn after the flame is shut off. And the char length, which is the length of the break in the fabric due to charring. It's measured like this. The char length here is about 3.5 inches. Various standards will outline the maximum acceptable char length, and vertical flame is a critical test to establish whether a fabric will self-extinguish. But it is not a predictor of protection level on everything, like an arc rating, for example, which we will talk about more in the next chapter of our program. Let's look at this test being conducted. In this test, a strip of navy blue FR fabric is hanging in the center of the chamber, ready to be tested. The test device is turned on and the flame begins to burn at the bottom of the strip. The timer on the left is counting down from 12 seconds. After 12 seconds of exposure, the flame stops and the time of any afterflame is measured. The fabric strip will then be removed from the device so the char length can be measured like I showed you a moment ago. Now that we know how the vertical flame test works, let's look at where it is referenced in some key standards. The first standard we'll talk about is ASTM F1506. The actual title is a mouthful. This standard is about specifying the minimum FR performance requirements to protect against arc flash exposure. Fabrics are evaluated based on how they perform when submitted to the specific tests listed in this standard. This includes the vertical flame test, which is conducted on unwashed fabric, and then again on fabric that has been home laundered 25 times. It requires a maximum char length of no more than 6 inches, and a maximum 2-second afterflame. Another key test listed in this standard is determining the fabric's arc rating, which in most cases is the arc thermal performance value, or ATPV. We will be discussing this in a moment. Other tests referenced in this standard include tear strength, seam slippage, color fastness, and shrinkage, to name a few. Garment specifications are also outlined in F1506, including whether a manufacturer is able to track the garment to the roll of fabric it came from, and if it is labeled with specific information. ASTM F1506 sets some basic guidelines for clothing when you are looking to protect your workers from arc flash hazards. Now, on the flash fire side, we have a standard called NFPA 2112. NFPA 2112 is the standard performance specification for flame-resistant garments for protection of industrial personnel against flash fire. At least I can get that one out in one breath. Like ASTM F1506, this standard specifies the minimum performance requirements for flame-resistant fabrics and components. It also outlines design requirements for garments. So it addresses both the fabric individually and the garment as a whole. Some folks may only look to see that a fabric is certified to NFPA 2112, but there are advantages to having a garment certified as well. Not that many manufacturers go to all the work to certify their garments to NFPA 2112. But I bet you can guess one who does. Might they be a sponsor of this video? But I digress. The fabric tests in this standard include the vertical flame test as well, but it's a little different. Fabrics need to be tested new, and then again after 100 industrial launderings. This is actually more washings than ASTM F1506, which specifies 25 home launderings. The maximum char length allowed to pass the test is 4 inches, and the maximum afterflame is 2 seconds. There are additional tests in 2112. They include the ASTM F1930, more commonly referred to as the mannequin test. This test estimates the potential body burn injury in a given garment when exposed to a simulated flash fire. We'll be talking about this more in depth later on. There is the Thermal Protective Performance, or TPP test, which helps measure the fabric's ability to block convective and radiant heat energy. It also lists the oven test, which is used to measure thermal shrinkage, as well as ensure that garment components like reflective striping or zippers and buttons don't melt or drip. So, in review, the basic entry test to determine if a fabric is flame resistant is ASTM D6413, or the vertical flame test. Standards that reference the vertical flame test in their criteria are NFPA 2112 on the flash fire side and ASTM F1506 on the electric arc flash side. Both of these standards outline the basic criteria for fabric and garments for protecting workers against these hazards. In our next chapter, we will take a closer look at the tests on the electric arc flash side, as well as a few others. See you soon.